Hello guys, good morning everybody. Welcome to Raj Malhotra IAS. I hope I am audible to you guys. अगर एक बार audible हूँ तो just let me know. Those who are with me in the comment box, just let me know whether I'm audible or not. Yes. चलिए. Thank you Kanika ji. Right. So we're gonna start the session for today. I think you could see the front page news over here. एक सबसे बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट न्यूज है जैसे कि आप देख सकते हो. दिस इज इन रिलेशन टू सेम सेक्स मैरिज. Now, I think you must be aware of this particular development that has been coming, that this petitions related to same-sex marriage is pending before the Supreme Court there in their constitution bench. But recently the government has said, if we talk about that this is a, let's say when we talk about same-sex marriage, it is against our culture, it is against our family traditions, and it is against our ancient ethnic traditions. Now in this particular context, most of the regional parties, or we could say parties that are based on various religious lines, have come together. As you can see, the Muslim, the Jain, Sikh and the Christian leaders along with RSS are opposing the same sex marriage as Supreme Court takes up the case, arguing that it contravenes scriptures, societal values and natural order. सो वन थिंग इज वेरी वेरी क्लियर दैट अगर हम इसकी बात करते हैं ना कंटेक्स्ट की सेम सेक्स मैरिज की, तो कहीं ना कहीं अगर हम बात करें काफी सारे जो रिलीजन ग्राउंड्स हैं या लीडर्स हैं वो एक बात के ऊपर तो बिल्कुल अगर हम बात करें दे आर ऑन द सेम पेज दैट दे डोंट वांट दिस पर्टिकुलर कंसेप्ट टू बी इंट्रोड्यूस्ड इन इंडिया. Although there have been historic judgments that have been made by the Supreme Court, let's say in the case of Navdesh Singh Johar केस. बट अगर हम ओवरऑल बात करें ना, पार्लियामेंट की बात करें, गवर्नमेंट की बात करें, गवर्नमेंट ने भी बिल्कुल क्लियर कर दिया है कि अगर कोई ऐसा लॉ बनेगा भी, इफ देयर इज एनी लॉ दैट हैज टू बी मेड ऑन दिस पर्टिकुलर कंसेप्ट, इट वुड बी मेड बाय द पार्लियामेंट एंड इट विल नॉट बी रेगुलेटेड बाय द सुप्रीम कोर्ट. सो देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ कंफ्यूजन दैट इज बेसिकली कमिंग. व्हाट वुड बी द डिसीजन और द रूलिंग ऑफ द सुप्रीम कोर्ट इन दिस कंटेक्स्ट ऑफ सेम सेक्स मैरिज. सो ये एक बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट डेवलपमेंट है जो आज के टाइम पे बनती जा रही है, राइट. इससे अगर हम बात करें, क्वेश्चंस बन सकते हैं एथिक्स के ऊपर, केस स्टडीज के ऊपर. सो आपको इसके रिलेटेड प्रॉपर जजमेंट्स पता होनी चाहिए. व्हाट इज द मैटर दैट इज राइट नाउ इन द कोर्ट एंड व्हाट इज द स्टांस दैट हैव बीन टेकन बाय द वेरियस रिलीजियस लेट्स से अथॉरिटीज एंड एज वेल एज अगर हम बात करें गवर्नमेंट का क्या स्टांस है, राइट. ओके, मूविंग टू द नेक्स्ट पार्ट. नाउ जब भी कोई चीज पहली बार होती है ना तो वो बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाती है. जैसे कि आप यहां पे देख सकते हो, इन अ फर्स्ट इरावकुलम नेशनल पार्क गेट्स अ फर्नेरियम. नाउ वन थिंग दैट बिकम्स वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, दैट वेयर इज दिस नेशनल पार्क सिचुएटेड? इरावकुलम नेशनल पार्क. अगर हम इसकी प्रोनाउंसिएशन से भी चलें और स्पेलिंग भी देखें, वी कुड मेक इट आउट दैट दिस पर्टिकुलर पार्क इज सिचुएटेड इन केरला. Now this particular park, now second question comes कि ये पार्क किस चीज के लिए फेमस है? ये पार्क जो है वो फेमस है नीलगिरी ताहर के लिए. This is the second most important point. For which particular purpose is this particular national park famous? तो ये फेमस हो गया जी किसके लिए? नीलगिरी ताहर के लिए. बट अभी अगर हम बात करें, what is the matter that has been discussed? It would be the first that would be getting a furnarium. Now what is this furnarium? It is basically, let's say अगर हम बात करते हैं एक्वेरियम फिशेस का होता है, तो उसी तरीके से फर्नेरियम में अगर हम बात कर रहे हैं, there is collection of ferns. Very important. तो बेसिकली इसी के अंदर क्या किया जा रहा है? फर्न्स की कलेक्शन करी जा रही है. नाउ इफ आई टॉक अबाउट फर्न्स, दे आर वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट बिकॉज दे आर अ इंडिकेटर ऑफ इकोलॉजिकल हेल्थ. This is a very important fact because you have seen in UPSC a lot of statement based questions comes in relation to this particular aspect. तो सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट चीज क्या है? ये इकोलॉजिकल हेल्थ का एक इंडिकेटर है. सेकंड ऑफ ऑल, इफ आई टॉक अबाउट फर्न्स, दे बिलोंग टू अ एपिफाइटिक फैमिली. वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. वो किससे बात करते हैं? दे बिलोंग टू अ एपिफाइटिक फैमिली. नाउ इफ आई कुड टेक यू बैक एंड टेल यू अबाउट दिस एपिफाइटिक फैमिली, दे डू नॉट रिक्वायर सॉइल टू ग्रो. दे डू नॉट रिक्वायर सॉइल टू ग्रो. अगर if we talk about, they get their nutrients and let's say water requirement from the leaching that has been done by the trees because they are grown, let's say, along with the trees. So this is the most important point that we have to understand, that they belong to epiphytic family. They grow naturally in a soilless condition. They obtain water and nutrients through leaching from the trees, and large number of ferns are on the trees inside the park. So this is the most important news that you guys need to be aware of in this particular context, right guys? Okay. Okay, Kavya, I try, let's say 70 to 80% I try to be in English, and 20% is because there are also people apart from you guys who understand Hindi as well. So I have to take a balance and make sure that I take it as a 80 to 20% English and Hindi. If there is any reference that I am making in Hindi as well, I would be, let's say, in my mind knowing particular fact, and I try to make sure that I give the English pronunciation for that particular thing that I have discussed in Hindi. I hope you understand this particular perspective, right? So this was the most important news that you have to understand, that Aravalli National Park, where it is situated, what it is famous for, and what is the basic, let's say, certain features related to ferns. Now, moving to the next part, this if we talk about first article, this we're not going to discuss. It's India needs a national program on autism. So it is a kind of, let's say, talking about mental health, and we don't need to dwell. Yes, the topic is very important, but right now this article is not that much important. But if I talk about this particular article, this is very, very important, because this talks about a certain news that was there 2 days back, that was related to rare diseases. So let's try to discuss something related to this particular provision of rare diseases. See, if I talk about total number of rare diseases in the world, if I talk about rare diseases, they are in total of 7,000 to 8,000 in number. So this is one of the most important fact that we have to understand कि कितनी diseases हैं. Along with it, in India we are finding around 450 rare diseases in India. So if I talk about India, yes, it is also a home to rare diseases. Now in this particular context, in the year 2021, there was a national policy that was introduced for rare diseases. Now let's try to discuss what was that national policy. So a national policy was discussed for rare diseases 2021. It had certain provisions that are very important to understand. It divided the total number of rare diseases into 3 groups. That was group 1, group 2 and group 3. So this is the important thing that we have to understand, that there were total of 3 groups that were made. This particular group had the rare diseases that has a one-time treatment, one-time curative treatment. This group 2 belongs to those particular rare diseases where the treatment is lifelong. And if I talk about group 3, this particular has a rare diseases, agar we talk about, that incur a very high cost. So the government first of all they divided these particular rare diseases into 3 groups. After that, they made sure that they provide financial assistance for someone, let's say, who is looking for the treatment of rare diseases, up to how much? That is up to 50 lakhs. So this is a very important thing that we have to understand, that they try to make sure that they give the financial assistance up to 50 lakhs. Now, if you have to avail this particular 50 lakhs financial assistance, it could be attained in a near center of excellence. So government over here approved certain, let's say, hospitals as centers of excellence where they would be given the treatment under the rare diseases. And most important thing that we have to understand, that in this whole policy there was creation of Nidhan Kendras that were basically for the genetic testing. So these are the 3 important things that we have to understand. One is the formation of Nidhan Kendras for the genetic testing related to rare diseases. One was centers of excellence to get the financial assistance up to 50 lakhs, and this was the division of the rare diseases in the 3 categories. Now, one of the most important thing that the government has recently done, that we know, if I talk about the medicines that are required for the treatment of these rare diseases, are generally imported. क्या किया जाता है? उनको import किया जाता है, and it cost nearly 10 lakhs to 1 crore for a particular year. It cost up to 10 lakh to 1 crore for a particular year. So in order to make sure that we have 2 major things in relation to the treatment of rare diseases, that is access and affordability. भाई सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट क्या है भाई, कि जो रेयर डिजीज से सफर कर रहे हैं, दे हैव द एक्सेस एंड द अफोर्डेबिलिटी. government has exempted, that is 100% custom duty for the products, let's say it could be medicines or special medical food products that are basically used in the treatment of these rare diseases. So government has given 100% basic exemption from the customs duty. So this is the most important thing that the government has done. Along with it, government has made sure that anyone, let's say importer of these particular rare disease, if he is trying to import something, he has to get a certificate from the health authorities. So these are the most important things that we have to understand in the context of national policy for rare diseases. What is national policy for rare diseases? How many policy rare diseases are there? What was the policy of India in 2021? And what are the recent features that have been added to this rare policy or this policy on rare diseases, right? So this is the important thing that we have to understand. I hope you are able to understand. If you have any doubt, you can ask me. Ek Jazwat, I think I am audible. You must have certain problem at your end, right? Okay. Now these are very important editorials. One is related to long on intent and second is no sayonara for Japan Indo-Pacific geopolitics. Now, first of all, let's try to discuss this particular long on intent. This basic editorial talks about the new foreign trade policy. I think everyone is now particularly aware of this new foreign trade policy that has been doing the rounds. Now there are certain facts that I want to discuss about new foreign trade policy. What are the various features of that foreign trade policy and what are the recent additions that have been done to this new foreign trade policy. So let's try to discuss. Now if I talk about the new foreign trade policy, it has been introduced by the Commerce Minister. This is the most important point that we have to understand, that it has been introduced by the Union Commerce Minister. Now, this particular new foreign trade policy, if I have to highlight one of the most important feature, it is related to taking our exports to nearly $2 trillion till 2030. Now, this is the target that they have tried to set, that to take the exports to $2 trillion till 2030. Now, one of the things that we have to understand in this particular context, that the government wants to increase the exports. This is the main focus on the foreign trade policy, that we have to increase the service exports as well as the merchandise exports. These are the two important things that we have to understand: service exports and merchandise exports. Now, in this particular context, there are certain sub schemes that are there within this new foreign trade policy, like we have advance authorization, we have export promotion capital goods scheme. These are the schemes that we have basically have if I talk about this new foreign trade policy. Now the question would be, sir, what is this advance authorization? This advance authorization allows duty free import of raw materials. This is the most important thing you have to understand. It allows duty free import of raw materials. ये तो क्लियर हो गया कि ये रॉ मटेरियल्स का ड्यूटी फ्री इंपोर्ट की बात कर रहा है. नाउ इफ आई टॉक अबाउट एक्सपोर्ट प्रमोशन कैपिटल गुड्स स्कीम, it basically allows duty free import of capital goods. Now these are two important things that we have to understand. ये capital goods के लिए है, this is for the raw materials. Now in this whole context, one thing we have to understand, that these are the existing schemes that were there in the earlier foreign trade policy of 2015 to 2020 as well. But they have introduced certain changes in this whole new foreign trade policy, with making sure that their focus is on making sure that they take the economy to a $2 trillion till 2030. And one of the things that they have tried to say, that we need to let's say focus on the areas that are the emerging issues, like e-commerce, right, automation, re-engineering. These are the things that we have to understand. But if we see the overall context now, yes, they have said that we will try to increase $2 trillion. Instead of giving incentives to exporters, we will try to give remission for the duties and the levies. They are certainly not telling that will be they able to achieve this, how they will be able to achieve this. So they have tried to tell us, but they are not mentioning it sector specific wise. That is the main, let's say, dukh dard hai is editorial ka, that they are not kept it, let's say, sector specific wise, but they have just given a plain overall framework that they want to take the services or let's say exports to $2 trillion till 2030. And these are the important schemes that we need to know: advance authorization, export promotion capital goods scheme, the new areas of things that they are trying to discuss, and they are trying to establish key e-commerce hubs, right? And along with it, they have now set up certain towns as centers of, or let's say towns of export excellence as well. Those who have read it in detail, they would be knowing about this. Moradabad, Varanasi, Mirzapur and Faridabad have been set up as towns of export excellence. You can write this as well. Moradabad, this could be a prelims fact. Varanasi, Mirzapur and Faridabad has been chosen as towns of export excellence, in addition to the 39 towns that we already have, right? So this is the most important thing that we have to understand about this particular editorial. Okay, moving to the next part. Now I think everyone is aware that the Japanese Prime Minister Kishida was there in India, and he laid the plan for the free and open Indo-Pacific. I think one must be aware of this particular terminology, free and open Indo-Pacific. This particular plan is focused on 4 pillars, and we have to understand what are these 4 pillars. The first pillar is peace and prosperity for all, and there shall be a rule-based order in this Indo-Pacific region. Peace and prosperity for all and a rule-based, let's say, order that shall be there in this Indo-Pacific region. For this particular purpose, we know that vulnerable countries are the, let's say, the most likely to suffer if there is no rule-based order. So one of the most important pillar is a rule-based order there has to be there. The second most important pillar that they are trying to highlight is addressing the concerns in Indo-Pacific. They have mentioned in this editorial as well, addressing the concerns and challenges in Indo-Pacific. Now, in order to make sure, Japan is trying to increase the cooperation for the issues that are there in Indo-Pacific. If I talk about the issues that are there in Indo-Pacific, let's say these are global security, or we could say cyber security, right? Climate change, food security. So these are the certain challenges we could say that are there in the Indo-Pacific region, and Japan wants to make sure that it increase the cooperation in these particular areas. So this is the second pillar of free and open Indo-Pacific. The third important thing is that we have to make sure that there is a multi-layered connectivity, and in order to achieve this, Japan has now, let's say, or been making investment into the Japan ASEAN Integration Fund. It will promote Bay of Bengal Northeast India Industrial Value Chain concept in cooperation with India and Bangladesh, and the new Palau International Airport Terminal project supported by Japan has also taken off. So one thing is very clear, that Japan is pure Indo-Pacific में trying to make sure that it increases the connectivity. Now the fourth pillar that is very important is Japan will help in making sure that there is the security and safe use of the sea to the air. There has to be security and the safe use of sea to the air. In this particular context, Japan will help in strengthening the capabilities of maritime law enforcement agencies. It will help in making sure that it strengthens the maritime law enforcement agencies in other countries. So this is the theme of this particular editorial. It is a potential GS paper mains question because it is a direct question or editorial that has given or highlighted the important aspects. If I talk about what is this free and open Indo-Pacific, what are its pillars, and how Japan is basically addressing this particular pillars. So these are the 3 most important editorials that we had today, and these are the most important. One is on the rare diseases, one is on the foreign trade policy, and one is on this visit of Japan and unveiling of free open Indo-Pacific plan, right? Okay. Now this is same-sex marriage, we have already discussed, we will not waste our time. Now this is indictment against Donald Trump, no need to go into this. Now this is a little bit important thing that we have to understand, that 6G has not been, let's say, introduced in India, but there has been a vision document that has been unveiled by our Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji. Now one thing we have to make sure that there are certain areas where not even 4G or 5G has taken off, but there have been already plans that government wants to make sure that whenever this 6G technology comes, they have to be the leaders in that particular technology, because one thing is absolutely let's say evident from this fact that we were way behind in countries, let's say those who had implemented the 5G technology. Now if I talk about the advantages of 6G over the 5G, these are very important to understand, right? कि हमें पता होना चाहिए ना कि एडवांटेजेस कौन से हैं. अगर हम एडवांटेजेस की बात करते हैं, सबसे बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट एडवांटेज है, एक तो वीडियोस की स्पीड बढ़ जाती है, डाउनलोडिंग की, सर्फिंग स्पीड इंक्रीज हो जाती है, then we remove the latency if I talk about in this overall context. So these are the certain things that we have. There is reduction of latency, there is video download capacity faster, and the quality of videos are more if I talk about in this whole 6G technology. Now one thing government wants to make sure that it is the leader whenever this new technology comes, and it is the one of the few countries that adopt this particular 6G technologies, right guys? चलिए, moving to the next part. All eyes on border talks between Bhutan, China as King begins India visit. Now, one thing is very absolute. We have to understand that Bhutan is now speaking the language of the China, which is not great for our relation with Bhutan. And this particular visit becomes very important in this particular context. If we see the timing of this Bhutan visit and the new foreign trade policy, now they have made a certain changes as well. Earlier, let's say, whenever there has to be a transit of the goods from India or to another countries, there was this particular thing that the transit of goods would be regulated in a manner as, let's say, it would be, let's say, हम regulate करेंगे, but it will make sure that it has to be manner that would be decided by Directorate General of Foreign Trade. He could bring in certain regulations related to the transit of the goods, and also we have to keep in mind the bilateral relation between the countries. But now this particular language has been completely changed, and it has basically said that this would be in relation to, if I talk about this transit of goods, I will try to speak you the statement as well, will be enabled and regulated in accordance with strategic and economic interest of India. Very important. Now they have removed this Director General of Foreign Trade. Now they have said the language that it would be in accordance with the strategic and economic interest. So this is a very interesting development that is basically coming, because अगर हम बात करें transit of goods की, तो हम अपने neighboring countries की ही बात कर रहे हैं, बांग्लादेश की बात कर रहे हैं, भूटान की बात कर रहे हैं. So this is very important, right? चलिए, moving to the next part. यहाँ पे ऐसा there is nothing that much important over here. These are all the political news that we have. Now, this is a little bit of very interesting article or the news that is important over here. Indian Council for Cultural Relation is trying to expand country's artistic and creative footprint globally by tapping into the experience of foreign students studying here. It is hoped that more than 48,000 foreign students in India will be the brand ambassadors of the national heritage, tourist destination, textile, yoga, Ayurveda and craft. Now, Indian Council of Cultural Relation is trying to harness upon this soft diplomacy so that the students who are studying over here, they must have taken certain time in order to make sure they understand the natural heritage, the national heritage. In this particular context, they are trying to run a program by the name of Exit Engagement Evenings, और short में हम इसको बोल सकते हैं E3. Now this is very important. Indian Council of Cultural Relations would be starting a program. This is a prelims fact, very important. Exit Engagement Evenings with foreign students beginning with 3 or 4 months before they finish their courses in various center and state universities. Now this is a part of that has been done by the Indian Council of Cultural Relations as a part of our soft diplomacy. So you can use this point in your mains answer as well, and this is a particular prelims fact that what is this E3 related to. If I talk about E3, that is Exit Engagement Evenings, where you are trying to engage with the foreign students, try to make sure that they harness on the particular various art and craft that we have in our country. So this is a very important news. Okay, so nothing important over here. And finally, we have the world page, and the most important news, Saudi Arabia, other oil giants announce cuts in production. We were already aware of this particular thing, considering how much the rates have collapsed if we talk about oil. So Saudi Arabia and other oil giants have said they would be announcing their cuts in the whole production process, and we have to see what is the rate of the further future अगर हम oil की बात करते हैं, right guys? चलिए, so we are done with the today's analysis. I hope you liked the analysis, है ना? My voice has also become better and I also feel better. That is why let's say we will try to make sure that we continue our sessions without any delay or without any latency, and we will see you each other tomorrow same time 9 AM. Till then, if you have any doubt you can ask me, otherwise I am going to end the session.